Green is next, but red is what I should be facing. I don't see red.
It's red.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to our town hall. This is Jim Lyon. I am in Anderson, Indiana, on the northeast side of the Indianapolis Metro in the studios of Church of God Ministries. Seated with me today are two marvelous teammates, part of our Church of God Ministries team, and we're here today especially to talk about Atlas. It's a program that we believe will help expedite, enhance, and strengthen the Church of God going forward into new generations and in this century. And before I introduce them to you, I want you to know we are so glad you've joined us today. And there is a number at the bottom of your screen that you can text questions along the way if you like. We'd be glad to interact with you too if you want to participate. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll find this a help and something that you can use going forward. And well, with me at the table today, there is Alicia Swoop. Alicia is our Chief of Staff, not our Chief of Staff, but our Chief Operating Officer at Church of God Ministries, and she lives here in the Anderson Metro, okay, the Indianapolis Metro. And next to Alicia is Elise Simon, who is here actually. She works remotely, but she's in Anderson these days for the holiday, and we're so thankful she can join us live for this town hall. And Elise has been with us wearing several different hats over several years, but has matriculated, you might say, has become so essential that she is now our Executive Director of Technology, which is no small hat to wear. We're so glad to have both Elise and Alicia with us, and again, thank you for joining us. You know, Executive Director of Technology is a great segue into our subject today, about something we call Atlas. But before we talk about Atlas per se, let's talk about technology. Why are we even talking about that if this is Church of God Ministries? If this is a church, if this is a ministry, if we're Jesus people engaged in trying to help advance the kingdom cause in this world, what in the world are we talking about technology? Why do we invest time, dollars, imagination, and brain power into it? And I'm thinking I have two people here who can help answer that question. What would you say? Why are we talking about tech at all?
Well, I think that one of the reasons we're talking about technology is because it's the way of the world. The majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis, most of us, include some form of technology. We are using technology right now to be speaking with you live in studio using Facebook Live. Most of us probably use online shopping, online grocery shopping. We bank online. Most of what we do on a day-to-day basis includes some level of technology, and so it is the way of the future.
I'd have to say, I read the newspaper online. I stay in touch with my family online. If I'm going to go to a restaurant and consider it for a place to take my wife or friends, I'm online first, looking up the menu, checking out what's available, what the cost might be, what are the opening hours. I mean, honestly, to your point, Alicia, all of us are functioning our lives with technology as a doorway, as a destination. And in the same way, the church, whether you're in a local parish, whether you're in a church ministry that's broader than just your local congregation, maybe you're in one of our institutions, like one of our universities, whether you're part of a regional association of the Church of God. We have 49 credentialing authorities that are regional, recognized as regional jurisdictions in the Church of God in the United States and Canada. Wherever you are in that stream of ministry, technology is something that has to be understood and embraced. And that's why we're talking about it here, because our job at Church of God Ministries, as the Office of the General Assembly, is to help resource and to help provide a way forward for our local churches, for our agencies, for our ministries, not only in the United States and Canada, but around the world. And because we've all had to come to terms with technology, everyone knows this journey. If you are my age, you certainly do. Maybe you were born already in the age of technology. When would that have started? I'm just saying, okay, I'm the Seattle guy. I'm in the same neighborhood as Bill Gates. Microsoft burst on the scene in a global way in the 1990s. For many people, that's kind of the advent of accessible technology in ordinary life. Does anybody remember Windows 95? That's the year 1995. Were any of you either alive then? The point is that You may predate that marker, or you may have been born afterwards, but the Church of God, like many folks, was struggling over time to adapt. How do we invest? Because we weren't accustomed to spending a lot of money in technology, understanding it, employing it, preparing for it. And at Church of God Ministries, which was formed in 1998, just in the threshold of that kind of globalization and a desktop in every home, that kind of a revolution of information, Church of God Ministries was also reacting to and trying to come to terms with technology. And this office did, and everyone did the best they knew how, but we probably under-resourced it in those early years, and maybe in the first 2 decades, because what happened at Church of God Ministries was that we were reacting, and this is before I was employed here, but I was a part of the Church of God. We were reacting to a world around us changing so rapidly. So we were taking half steps instead of full steps. And the things changed so rapidly that people couldn't keep up, and we couldn't keep up. And what that led to is a kind of legacy of disjointed technology in our ministry delivery. Lisa and Alicia, you both work routinely with some of the deliverables that Church of God Ministries must provide to our churches in the General Assembly. So give us a clue. What are some of the things that we have to do, which will bring us back to why technology matters in this conversation?
Yeah, some of the things that we do previously that were all in separate systems, separate databases, is leadership focus. We help facilitate the journey of candidates through leadership focus. We serve people through events. It's all the same group of people, but we're serving them in various ways. We also have to communicate with many of you, whether you're a credentialed minister or just someone who's really invested in the movement. We communicate with you in different ways. So we have all these different ways that we serve the movement, but all of it was very separate. And so serving you was difficult to do it well.
I think we might have a slide actually that we could put up that names so many of these different facets that people don't comprehend unless you actually have to act on them. That includes some of those things you've just named, Elise, like Leadership Focus. Now, Leadership Focus is a program that the General Assembly adopted a few years ago, and it was a pre-existing program, and we purchased it from those who had imagined and brought it to life, but it came with a very inadequate technological platform. And that program has exploded exponentially in our years. And our capacity to deliver Leadership Focus, which we're required to do, requires huge investments in technology infrastructure to be able to satisfy it. And on your screen, you can see some of the other things that are referenced here. Credentialing also has been embraced as a universal template by the General Assembly a few years ago, which means that in ways different than in earlier generations, Church of God Ministries is required to provide systems and infrastructure for the delivery of credentialing records and tracking and so on. Leadership Focus is a pathway to credentialing, but credentialing is a whole other body of work that we are responsible for in record management, and also making it accessible to people who need to know if you're in a particular regional association and you are in a process of credentialing, you want to know where you are in that process, or is someone else credentialed or not. All of those questions fall back on our basic data infrastructure, which is technology. Giving, think about giving. Tracking dollars and cents. Most contributions to Church of God Ministries in the day came in by the Postal Service, by surface mail, but that's not true anymore. People rarely write checks. We're glad for every check that comes in. If you're writing those checks, please don't think this is a dismissal of you, because I still write checks myself. But people pay online. You likely pay your utility bill online, or you make a gift to your local church online, or so on. Well, we have that same thing across many time zones and so many different contributors. And then we have to track that in a very complex weave of project accounts and things that we inherited when Church of God Adventist Ministries was formed in 1998, we were the consolidation of several independent agencies, and we have to carry forward their commitments on their financial project lines, as well as we create project lines and receive money. But there's over 130 of those, which is an astounding. If you're in the accounting profession, you can understand that that is an astonishingly complex number of separate accounts that you have to manage. All of it requires technology. We could go on, but to your point, Elise, we had to deliver on all those front lines, and in order to do it in a new technological age, Church of God Ministries was accustomed to just contracting with one single software provider to meet the needs of the giving issues, the financial tracking, the accounting issues. Another provider would create software for the credentialing thing. We'd have, and we still are using outside providers for some of our event tracking, but the ambition would be to get all of this under a single umbrella so that we could more efficiently and yes, less expensively employ those systems. People don't realize how much it costs to do that, and because in your local church, because maybe the volume, the complexity, the access is not the same as what we're required to have available at Church of God Ministries, you might think, well, I just pay X dollars a month for QuickBooks to keep track of our books, but that would not be adequate for something that we're required to provide in terms of just the complexity and the vast number of trails we have to document for money coming in and money going out and so on. So what to do? Because we're paying, let's just talk about the accounting software. Until change has been made in the Atlas platform, we were required to pay $65,000 a year, and I think it was indexed up every year, just for the independent software necessary to operate our accounting. And you might think, oh, that's crazy, we could do better than that. No, we shopped that. We looked for the best and the brightest, and we look at peers in nonprofit accounting and Christian nonprofits and so on, and what we had was necessary, but that $65,000 a year, and who pays for that? And where's it go? And multiply that over a decade. And of course, that's indexed with increases every year. But even if it was fixed at $65,000, that one software alone was $650,000 over a decade. That's a lot of money. And we began to think, are there ways that we could economize by not having to deal with separate vendors? One other famous illustration, Ministry Connector, a technology born a quarter century ago in a specific contract with a vendor, contracted with Church of God Ministries to help match up pastors and churches looking for placements in the ministry and so on. But we were held hostage. That's kind of a hard word, but I'm saying it was not owned by us. When there were hiccups in the system, we couldn't fix them ourselves because we weren't the owners of the software. We were dependent upon the people who created it to get us in their queue so they could help match that. And the data feed into that was not integrated into any other data we had from the credentialing committees and so on, because that was separate software, because everything was addressed in a kind of one at a time, piecemeal, reactive way. We actually employed several employees full-time in Anderson simply to do manual data entry. When I came to the table, I was shocked because I was used to registering for the yearbook online. I type it in on my computer in the church office, and then I thought, well, that's just gone into the system. No, it came into Church of God Ministries, which then had people who printed out a paper copy of what I was typing in and then re-entered it manually into a database that was not connected to the other databases that we use. All of that is not very efficient. What can we do to save money? Elise, you were there at the front end. How did we try to address that? What steps did we take to make sure we were making the right move by creating our own software that might be customized for our needs?
Yeah, initially we started out by doing research across all different types of what we call out-of-box systems, and we just didn't find one that fit all of our needs, that would be able to serve all the different functions that we have to do here at Church of God Ministries. And so what we chose to do is move toward one software that it does have some pieces that are out of the box, as we call them, but it gave us this ability to customize. So we had lots of opportunity to dream about what that could look like. So we started at the very beginning of this whole process by talking to some of our agency partners and universities and some church leaders, and brought together this whole group of people to dream together about what this technology investment could look like. And we invited all those ideas in and tried to collaborate and come up with something that would serve everyone's needs, that everyone would have access to.
It was a process of engaging the end user in advance, the targeted audience. What do you need? What do you want? We want to be able to deliver to you what will help you on the ground in ministry. And what would you like to see? If you could have anything, what would you like to be able to access? Would you like to be able to press a button and find out how many people are in the credentialing stream in leadership focus in your regional jurisdiction? Would you like, I'm just pulling something out of a hat, but it's that kind of things that maybe in the Anderson Church of God Ministries office, we wouldn't occur to think as a priority, but boy, when we engaged pastors and regional pastors in a long period of time, it was not just a single meetup, it was an ongoing dialogue, and a dialogue that engaged professional software engineers, because I could dream up a lot of things that really are not possible. But we had these professionals alongside to be able to curate what they're hearing and say, oh yeah, here's a way to do that. And so that's what gave birth to what we are now talking about, right?
Yeah.
Atlas.
Yes.
And could I say that, I mean, would you agree with me? I can say, of course, but would you agree that I'm saying it appropriately? That even though it's been an expensive proposition, there's all kinds of talk, I think, on the street about how much it costs, that the whole thing was conceived and is being pursued to save the church money. And it is on track to do that. But it's just like if you're building a house, you put a lot of money up front. But once you move in, then the costs decrease. There are always going to be some maintenance costs of your new house or the new car you purchased. But all the upfront costs, it's like, oh, you just shake your head. Many people know I lost my house to a fire in 2011. My wife and I did, and we had to rebuild it from scratch. I mean, there was still part of it standing. There was a shell there, but we lost everything. I have 5 things left for my whole lifetime. That survived that fire. And so when we were rebuilding that, it just was staggering, the cost. I'd never built a house before. And even though I had some insurance, the insurance wasn't exactly a match for what needed to be reproduced and so on. I was just saying, I really came to terms with the reality. It just was so traumatizing to see all that money going out in a year to rebuild my house. But now that I'm in my house, it's so much easier. I still have to maintain it. I still have to replace the gutters or fix the light switch, but we're so far ahead. And think about this technology platform we call Atlas in that same vein. And Elise, you work in the industry. I mean, you're here not because we just like you and you're good company, because you have expertise. I mean, can you honestly say this investment of time, energy, and even what we're talking about today will save the kingdom money, is already beginning to show that fruit. Is that fair to say?
Yes. The cost, like you said, just like with a house, you compare it to a rent, you paying rent. If you pay someone outside, like renting a home, it costs a lot more money over time than if you invest in your own home and are able to do that. And we were able to do that with some really generous gifts that we invested in this one-time cost.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
The value of identifying a system that was customizable is that it allows for the system to grow with us as we grow, to evolve with us as we evolve. If we're using the analogy of a house, and you move into a house, you buy a house, you build a house that fits you as a single person, but then you get married and you begin to have children, you're going to have to spend a hefty amount of dollars again to purchase another home that fits the size of your family, when you can make a one-time investment that is large enough to accommodate your life as it evolves and as it grows. And I think that's similar to what the goal was with Atlas, identifying Atlas, this system that can grow with us as we grow.
And to the point of the capital investment required to build the house, to get it open, it is a big number. But I want to reassure the movement that trigger was pulled to proceed with this project because we had income in 2 streams. One is we had an estate gift, a huge estate gift. This was a dear saint who passed away, had written Church of God Ministries into their estate distribution. That I won't go into all the story about it, but the long bottom line is almost 80% of the whole investment, the capital upfront, was in that estate, and that estate was pleased to help us get this show on the road, so to speak. And then the balance of the capital actually has been received in specific asks to donors, people who are loving Jesus and they love the Church of God, but they are also people who are, the donors to this project have been people who are business owners. They own businesses themselves, they have succeeded in their businesses, and they understood straight away when the ask came why technology matters and why the church of all places, if there was anything that needed to be equipped with the technology necessary to advance, it was the ministry and the gospel and the church. And so those folk have made the contributions necessary to build the house. And we want to help lay to rest any idea that anything that comes in later in the maintenance asks that come down the road, or how do we keep it going, is not to recoup money that's already been spent. That money came in for this purpose. And we praise God that that house has been built, and it's still not finished altogether, and there's some rooms that we need to furnish, and so on and so forth. But man, what a great gift to the movement, to the kingdom of God for that. And that brings us to, what is that thing? Atlas. That's the term that we landed on to describe this technology platform, often misunderstood, because Atlas is a big umbrella term that also has some separate particulars. But for the purposes of this town hall and going forward, we hope that you can grasp with us that this term Atlas is the name of our technology platform that is owned by the Church of God, that's been custom built for the Church of God, and has the capacity to grow with the Church of God, and can be engineered and adapted and expanded by the Church of God. And that is a huge step forward into the 21st century. And I'll give a word of prophecy. My days are numbered in this job, but I'll give a word of prophecy that in the next decade, and certainly in the next 2 decades, Atlas will be seen as one of the most important advances in the ministry that we've ever made as a movement, because of its capacity to empower the church to network, to track, to dream, to even make decisions, because the business people that love Jesus and love the Church of God, they understand that they're making business decisions based on accurate data. And they're willing to invest in data to make sure their business succeeds. What's happening now is we're investing in a data platform, a technology platform, that will help us make the right choices with the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, but also with sound data and statistics and understanding of where we are in the moment and where we've been. So Atlas.
Yeah.
What would you say, Alicia? How do we get to Atlas in terms of the name?
In terms of the name.
Yes. Well, when we say Atlas, if you were thinking about this technology platform, what would Atlas suggest to you?
So,
a map?
Absolutely. We think about the word atlas and what that means, what that is. Atlas is a map. And it reminds me actually of the scripture that says, "Go ye therefore into all nations." What technology allows us to do, what Atlas will allow us to do, is to be more efficient, is to go further, faster in building up and advancing the kingdom of God, advancing the work of the movement of the Church of God. So I think that's where we came up with the name Atlas.
Because when you're trying to find your way, you would reach for an atlas. That's how I grew up. And this is actually equivalent. A map reflects today's reality. This is where the road is, this is where the construction zone is, and so on. Atlas, our hope and dream, is it's helping us understand where we are accurately. That could be about finances. That could be what I call the census. That's the number of souls who gather with us routinely or consider us their church home. This could be about the processes and how they're working or not working, and how we can make adjustments, how we can network, where gift sets are in the body. The end game of Atlas, ultimately the real big dream, is to allow everyone in the Church of God to have an Atlas account and to be able to say, I'm an accountant and I live in Montana and I help my local church here, but if you're a small church in Kansas and you have struggled with accounting, I'm willing to volunteer. And see, with technology you can do that. That's just a hypothetical. We are not there yet, Not everyone can get an Atlas account because the build out of the house will not accommodate that, and we still have some things we have to do to get there. But that's the idea. That's why I'm saying in 10 years from now, people will go to Atlas to find out how to solve their accounting problem with a partner in the body of Christ that may not be close to them geographically, but they can find them on the map of the Church of God. So with that said, what we have today, an Atlas portal, if you go to our jesusisthewebsite.org, kind of front page, you'll see an Atlas button, or you could go to, what is it?
mychogatlas.org.
MyChog Atlas. And I think we have a slide that can tell us what you'll find there. And what this is just a portion of Atlas. This is not the whole thing that's up and running, but this has the broadest audience. And so Atlas includes access to these things. Walk us through some of those, what that means.
Yeah, so right now we've really opened up Atlas to any individual who's a part of our General Assembly.
So let's just stop there.
Yeah.
Everybody in the Church of God who calls the Church of God home, we don't have enough bandwidth yet for you to get your own account. But on that page, where there is that list of options, people who are qualified voting members of the General Assembly, as defined by the Constitution of the General Assembly, can get an Atlas account. And that's all credentialed pastors and licensed ministers. It includes all the agency board members of the universities and the, by I say agency, that are endorsed or affiliated agencies with the General Assembly. It includes pastors and missionaries and all that stuff. Leadership-focused candidates are included in that. They may not actually be qualified as voting members of the General Assembly, but they're on their way through the leadership-focused pathway. And the reason that is a way to summarize who can access right now today is because to be a qualified member of a voting member of the General Assembly, you have to be vetted. There's a process. You go through a credentialing process where you're vetted and where you're held accountable through your local credentialing authority. If you're in leadership focus, you've been vetted as you're in the program. If you're an agency board member, you've been ratified by the General Assembly. If you're an endorsed agency board member, or you've been through a vetting process of an affiliated agency board already. So that matters because it has to do with security. So let's look at if we can look at the slide again and talk to us about why those things require security to access that data.
But one other thing I was going to add is some people ask the question, why do I need to be invited? And that's not to be exclusive. It's more we have information about you already. We know your credentialing information. We know leadership focus information about you. So inviting you to access your profile connects your login with the information we already have about you. If you just went and created your own account and you logged into Atlas, you wouldn't be connected with the information we already have about you. So that's why we need to invite you. It's not intended to be solely exclusive.
Well, and when you're talking about this invitation, what you're addressing, Elise, is if you go to jesussubject.org and you press the Atlas tab, and it'll say, do you have an account? Sign in. But if you don't have an account, you have to ask for one. And what that does is we then have to certify that you are eligible for access and send you an invitation link. That prohibits somebody who's not in the Church of God, because remember, when you go online, you're going to Chipotle's website to look at their menu. That is open to every person in the world. What we're talking about here is opening an online portal that could give access to personal information, birth dates, histories, educational things, where people serve and so on. All of that is fair information for the Church of God, but an invitation is our way today of restricting access to information that you may not, because you have eligibility to be in it, you're a pastor, you may not want the whole world to see it, but you do want to have a profile and you want to be able to access those lists of services. So the invitation is not something, don't wait for your email box for an invitation. That's not what we're talking about. Go to the webpage, jesusisthesubject.org, press Atlas, and if you don't have an account already, then ask for one. Then somebody will respond to you with an invitation. Once that happens, it unites, just like you're saying, Elise, your pre-existing data and allows you to populate with additional data based on your interests and your desire. Okay, that's it.
Yes.
That's a security thing. Let's look at some of the things that you can get on Atlas if you're in the General Assembly.
Yeah, so if you're in the General Assembly, you can currently go in and access information about your credentials. and also complete the annual registration process. You can also print your minister ID card, or if you prefer, there is a way for you to request us to send you one. There's also the yearbook in there. So right now we have a digital yearbook. The reason that we decided to do the yearbook in this environment is because oftentimes the printed yearbook, while beneficial in many ways, can get out of date quickly. And so the dynamic or digital yearbook is up to date at all times based on the information that people provide. You can also access Leadership Focus registration and complete your enrollment tasks and begin your journey with Leadership Focus. The last thing I'll highlight here that I think is really important to many people is this ministry opportunities. This is the opportunity to connect church ministry opportunities with some of our credentialed ministers that we used to deliver in a different portal. So these are all areas that you can currently connect across the movement within this the online portal of Atlas.
And this is an initial phase of Atlas.
Yeah.
Again, the dream is to someday be able to bring access to every person in the Church of God who can curate the information they want to share. They can raise their hand and say, I want you to send me information about women's ministries, or, so you don't just get flooded with every announcement about everything. You get to kind of pick and choose what is of interest to you or where you're feeling called. It allows you to network more effectively across your local church, and because if other people in your local church get accounts, they'll be able to disclose. I really hope I can help with accounting, let's say. But it will also help you connect to the larger movement of thousands of churches where people are saying, I have something I can give to the kingdom, and it may not be necessary where I live right now. It may not be in my neighborhood, but it might be useful for the Church of God some other place, and it can be delivered online. All of that is a dream that is on its way, and it's possible. We're just not that far down the road yet. The house isn't complete yet, but right now what is complete in the General Assembly, and actually there are between 5,000 and 6,000 people, qualified members of the General Assembly. And the reason that number is fluctuated is because you can be appointed as a lay delegate to the General Assembly by your local church. But that's a very fluid number, because in order to be a lay delegate, a voting member of the Assembly, and think about this going forward to the next June Assembly in Denver 2025, is you just need to be certified in writing by your pastor or the board chair of your local church or something, so that when we get that, we know that it's legit. Because truth is, we've had some people who were imposters try to secure voting devices at our General Assembly who were not recognized by their church as somebody qualified to represent them. So again, we live in a world where we have to have some guardrails, but back to 5,000 to 6,000, if you look at the number of credentials pastors we have, and the agency board members, and so on and so forth. And then you add in lay delegates, which could go as high as 6,000, depending on who actually takes advantage of that avenue. That's a very substantial population that now can move into the 21st century with access to data and networking and help. But there's more. That's just a front page. So when people think about Atlas, they go to that page, that's what they say, but wow, it's just a section. Mm-hmm. What else is involved in Atlas?
Yeah, I'm going to add one other piece, a really practical example of information. So there's also, when you get into Atlas, you can provide information about yourself and the church, as we talked about. Some people are really hesitant to provide data these days, and I understand that. But I'm going to give you a practical example of how this could be really useful in the kingdom. During COVID, we had a request that came in asking us to connect our churches who had food pantries with another organization that wanted to come alongside them. And we didn't know which of our churches were either had their own or were connected to one. So we were unable to resource and connect our churches with that organization. But by giving us that information, we can then connect and resource across the movement. So I know there's a lot of hesitancy about providing data, but that's our heart in collecting it, is to help resource and connect you. And so that's part of what we're asking for, that you can provide within that online experience.
Before you talk about what's to come, I just want to highlight the fact that how important data is. None of this works without information. The reason why we're able to connect people and move things further faster is because of information. So for those of you who have Atlas profiles, for those of you who don't yet have your Atlas profiles, but you're going to run to sign up, you're going to run to make sure you get your profile set up after this live, I want to make sure that, or I want to encourage you to put as much information in your profile as possible, because that allows for us to be able to talk with you, to relate with you, to connect with you on a much more in a much more relevant way and in a much more precise way. This system is for all of us. Yes, it does benefit Church of God Ministries and the Church of God movement, but it should be a benefit to you as well. And so the more information you are willing to share with us, because the information in this database is, a lot of it is by self-disclosure. So as you are setting up your Atlas profile, the more information that you provide us with, the better that we are able to work with you to ensure that you are benefiting from this system. And so I just wanted to highlight that as well.
Well, and when you open an Atlas account, there's a profile page. And it's, there's some basic information. This is how you can contact me. This is where I live. This is where I go to church, or this is where I serve. But there are also some like preferences and just like, I say temperamental preferences. Do you prefer hymns or more contemporary music? A hymn can be contemporary, but my point here is that these are little clues. If you're going to enter into the ministry network part of the Atlas that you can access because you're already a credentialed minister, let's say, and you're thinking about a church that's knocking on your door to call you, or maybe you're the head of a search committee for the new pastor, and you're trying to look at pastors across the movement, the system, I have not pressed these buttons yet myself, but my understanding is it's being equipped so that you can look at pastors who really love hymns, and those who have disclosed that information, which could save a lot of grief for every church that's had a conflict about style of music. As you're searching for leadership, there's never going to be a substitute for the Holy Spirit. But the Church of God, perhaps more than any other fellowship believers, is relational. Atlas will help inform and enhance your relationships. And to Alicia's point, the more you disclose in your profile, the greater benefit it will be for you and others seeking ministerial relationships in and across the movement. Well, there's another subsection of this called dynamics. People hear about dynamics. Dynamics is a subset, you might say, of Atlas. Remember, Atlas is a term for this whole platform of technology. It has many separate deliverables. Dynamics is both a product, it's a Microsoft product, but it's what actually is the data piece. And so it's the most expensive part of the whole thing. So when people think about the cost of setting up the whole Atlas deal, it all hinges on the data piece of it, which is in dynamics. And this is where all the focus groups came from, because if we're going to invest that heavily in actually managing data and collecting it in a way that can be useful, our regional associations especially had some hopes and dreams for it. And that's where dynamics usually enters into the conversation. But we want you to know that that's not something accessible to every member of the General Assembly. You have to be trained and authorized within your regional association to get, you might say, behind the curtain to deeper dive data survey. And that's necessary, and it can really strengthen the ministry on the ground if you can get some of that information. But we just want everyone to know not everybody gets there. And some associations haven't had anyone yet go through the training to be able to access it or understand it. Sometimes people get frustrated thinking it doesn't work. Actually, so far, Dynamics works really well, but you have to be trained to be able to do it. Because if you have authorization to get into Dynamics, if you don't do it correctly, you might actually inadvertently corrupt the data. And that's why it's so important that that access be limited. But every regional association has the potential of diving into that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to what's coming up.
Yeah.
We're almost on the end of 24 and 25. This is a rolling development. Just like when I was building my house after the fire, the kitchen and the plumbing got some things first, and then the roof, and then, you do it in stages before you actually can move into every room. When we were building a new church building, the whole building was not ready at once, so we just took one floor at first. This is my church in Seattle, and then it was a year before we got the next floor, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
So we have actually a calendar of what we hope for. And so what are our targets for 2025? What could people look forward to?
Yeah, in 2025, a lot of what we have heard as feedback is that when people log into this online portal, it's functional, but it's not as user-friendly as most people would hope for. And so we are going to invest time and energy and some resources in improving that experience. And then on the other side of that, we've also heard things like, my email gets filled up way too fast with emails. And so I don't actually see all the emails you're sending to me. But I see text messages. I'll get a text message and respond. And so we're going to have the ability to text information to you if you're credentialed, and you can opt into that. We won't opt anyone into that automatically, but you can choose that. To create the opportunity for event registration inside of Atlas, an enhanced yearbook experience. That hasn't been completely defined yet as we're talking through what that should be with some of our stakeholders across the movement, but an enhanced experience of that. And then some forms and stuff that we can collaborate with our assemblies more effectively, especially with credentialing and leadership focus.
These enhancements are in a queue, and like everything, like every project, whether it be Atlas or even a missionary project abroad or the building of your new church building or the hiring of a staff member that you dream of having, whatever it is, it's all hoped for, and you can calendar it. You can have what sometimes called a Gantt chart. I go to here, to here, to here, to here to get to the destination. But it also requires resources. So what we have just unpacked for you is what we believe we can actually resource and deliver in 2025. But, we can't predict all of those things exactly, but that's it. And once that checklist is done, there's another checklist for the next year and so on to keep it alive. And that's part of the beauty of Atlas, is that it is a living organic tool that we can constantly refresh and update because we own it and are not waiting for some other vendor to actually get the work done. Now, somebody's going to say, I've had a lot of problems with my Atlas. I've called in and I didn't get my problem solved. What would you say to that?
Yeah, we have a team that I oversee that is trying to support you all in using Atlas well. So there's different ways you can get access to that team. You can call Church God Ministries, and you will get some assistance that way. You can also email atlas@chog.org, or when you get into Atlas, there's a little button down in the bottom corner where you can get Atlas help. And we are doing our best to get through all of those tickets as quickly as possible to assist you with support.
Tickets. What happens is when somebody registers, I say register, maybe all these words have double meanings, don't they? When you raise your hand through an email or a phone call and say, I can't get into my account or it's not working, what happens is what's called a ticket is generated. And people who are in the team here have varying levels of capacity to actually fix the problem. It depends on what it is. But we want you to know that we're building that out, and we're very sensitive to customer service. And that's really what this is about. And we realize that there always have been some hiccups, and that can be so frustrating. But we've actually just been able to increase the staff and expertise. We've just brought in a new young woman who is so gifted in her understanding and knowledge of these things to be able to get that ticket and put it together. It may not be the person that takes your call, but we're building a team, and we have a team already, and we're trying to invest in it to make sure that it delivers the best possible product. And it does take time. Thank you for your patience. But it also, again, is dependent on how much time and energy is spent resourcing, how we have to figure out ways to resource all of this. There are plans and things, but every now and then they run into a left turn or an unexpected pothole in the road. But all of it's on track, and the heavy lifting is behind us. And now it's a chance to actually build out the dream in a house that is solid and on solid foundation. We have a question that's come in. What has been the biggest challenge you have faced while developing or implementing Atlas? Who'd like to take a stab at that?
Yeah, we've had a few different things that I can think of right off the top of my head, but I think one of them, as we talked about, is we had all these separate systems, and included in that separate system is a separate database. So it's been quite a challenge to make sure that we pulled all that data together and we connected an individual's event registration with their leadership focus journey, with any giving that they had, with their credentialing information. And so trying to pull all that data together has been quite a challenge. And sometimes that's why you call in and, oh, we actually found that we had duplicate profiles for you, so we have to merge them together. Because there was all these separate databases created a lot of difficulty in pulling it together into one place.
And would it be fair to say sometimes people don't update their profiles, or they before Atlas they could update one of those databases, but it wouldn't transfer to the other. So then we'd have multiple addresses and contacts because they weren't talking to each other, and that's so inefficient, and it costs so much money because all of those are staff things that have to be. You have to unravel all the knots of threads. And we're just, again, making real huge progress on that. But one way to help address that challenge is if you're in the Church of God and you're a member of the General Assembly, get an Atlas account, open it up, and make sure that your information is up to date, that all the contact information is correct, because people change email addresses. We all do this, and we may not be conscious of how that impacts this database, but that'll help a lot. Are there other challenges that you faced?
I'd like to add one. I think change. Change in how you engage with the movement. So we may be in our other, spheres of influence in our lives, or with our families, in our shopping habits, in our banking habits. We may be used to engaging digitally, but a increased digital engagement with the movement is something that's different. For us here internally as well as abroad within the movement. And so I think getting people to shift their perspective in how they engage with us has been a heavy lift that we are continuing to work to get people to understand the importance of it, the value of it, and how it will benefit them. So I would say just change in general can be challenging.
I have an anecdote just recent too, where I had dinner with a young pastor in his 20s. Maybe he's 30 now, I don't know, but it's in that age group. And I was just getting acquainted with him, and he's in a new position in a new local church where he's become the lead pastor, where he had not been the lead before. And he just volunteered to me. I wasn't fishing for anything, but he just said, oh, you know what, I just felt like the Lord was calling me to a new step, to a new ministry venue. I wasn't sure what to do about that and so on, but I was praying over it, and I just went and opened an Atlas account. And as I did, I found a list of churches and so on, and I sent my name out and so on, and that church responded. And the long story short is, he just said, wow, the Lord really worked through Atlas to match me up to the right place. He's so excited to be where he is. And I talked to the leaders of that church, not about him per se, but their first thing out of the gate is, oh, we're so excited to have this pastor. And actually it was Atlas that was being engaged by both ends of that relationship that made it happen. Well, another question? What would you like to take?
Is it the top one?
Do we have plans to enhance the...
We answered that one.
You want to do that one? We have two questions that are come up just in sequence. Do you have plans to enhance the Atlas platform in the future? Well, yes, we've talked about some of that.
Yep.
And some of that is an aesthetic enhancement. That's what you're looking for in
Yes.
2025 is when you talk about intuitive engagement, but it also is just the aesthetic of the portal and so on to kind of upgrade that. So you're thinking like, wow, I'm entering in something really useful and together, right?
Yeah, in 2025, yes, there'll be parts of it that are enhancements in just your experience. Is it intuitive? And then we also plan to have some feature enhancements too, such as the enhanced experience of the yearbook and stuff
Okay.
like that, yeah.
What are you doing to keep people's information secure?
Yeah.
That was a really good question.
Yeah.
I worry about this in my own world not at Church of God Ministries so much, but everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to answer that in two different pieces. The first one is that all of your data is being housed in a database. It is a Microsoft database it's called Azure. That's a lot of information, but it is secure. It's not accessible. The second piece of that is that when you log in and you can update your profile, there is an area of that where you get to choose what other people see about you. So you can say, I would like people to see my name and my phone number, but I do not want anyone to see my address. And so you get to choose what is accessible to others who are logging in and looking at what we call a public profile. As a reminder that all of that data goes into our underlying database that you have to have specific training and access to see. Right now we're sharing that with its Church of God Ministries and our assemblies because they collaborate with us on so many different ways that we serve the movement. But as far as the online portal goes, you get to choose what people see about you.
And when you say assemblies, you mean our regional associations?
Regional, yes.
Right, the credentialing jurisdictions and so on.
Yeah.
There's another layer of security issues, and that has to do with, the internal security that we have set up.
Mm-hmm.
But I sometimes remark, and I don't mean this in any way except it's anything except it's true. My life has been personally threatened 27 times on social media. That's consequent to some of the trips I've taken abroad where I used to post about those trips, about how the gospel was advancing. I don't do that anymore because it stirs up not just trolls, but people who sound pretty threatening to me. Okay, so I'm thinking, with that kind of exposure, do the bad guys have a way to penetrate our firewalls externally? And tell us about some of the steps that we take always to protect. We do contract with some security experts, don't we?
Yeah.
To make sure that the best in the business firewalls exist around our data, especially now that we have Atlas.
Yeah, we do. We have a company that we work with that helps to protect all of our network, is what we call it. So everything that we house inside of our network is protected. Sometimes people get really annoyed with MFA, multi-factor authentication. People get pretty annoyed with it. But that is a way that we protect all of our information that we hold inside of our network. So that if you have a login, you have to actually do a secondary verification that it's you. And that's how we are cracking down on people hacking into our system. And we haven't had that happen.
Sometimes we get requests to post things online at Jesus' subject page or so on, the records of the General Assembly meeting or so on. But always remember that what you put online in a public way, like jesussubject.org is a publicly accessible website, is accessible to every person on the planet. And so what seems to be innocuous or appropriate for us to put the minutes of the General Assembly meeting just up on the stage could be used by someone who opposed the gospel. And the same people who are online trolling me saying, we're going to kill you if you come back to our country. I mean, they can get clues and access to things that should not be done. So Atlas is also going to help us. Right now we don't post that stuff there, but creating that resource base within the Atlas umbrella for those who are authorized to have Atlas accounts, that's possible in a way that never was before.
Yeah, I was going to say that's part of why it's really important that we're vetting every person who asks for access to this online portal and are making sure that they've been vetted by their regional association or the GA. Right. That's why that's really important.
We are so thankful for those who have made Atlas possible. It is a donor base of people who actually live in a secular world of business and so on, but who also love Jesus. And they are understanding the need and the value and the opportunity that this kind of technology can provide. We're thankful for that. We're also thankful for the team that's come alongside. Elise has been with this project from its beginning. Alicia came to join our Church of God Ministries team as it was already underway, but Elise is in the reporting line of Alicia as our Chief Operating Officer. And their investment and those that work with them have been huge. Sometimes you might hear something outside or get frustrated with a call, even that you hear with us. Please don't just throw your hands up and call up a few neighbors with your concerns. call us back. And if nobody else will answer the phone, call me up, please. Because I promise you, my office is staffed in a way that we take the phone calls and we will get back to you with your concern. And if everything else failed, before you go talking to somebody else, come to me, at least as long as I'm in the office. It's not that I'm the answer all, but I promise you, we are dedicated to helping serve you. And if there's a hiccup, if there's a mess up, if there's a problem, and you're not satisfied, please reach out to me directly. That's so welcome always. Alicia, anything you want to add? You don't have any more questions in the queue.
No, I would just end by saying we invite you into the system. For those of you that are a part of the General Assembly, we want to connect with you in as many ways as possible. And this technological system gives us the opportunity to be able to do that. So we would just invite you to sign up, create your profile, set up your profile. If you have not done that, and as Jim said, if you all have questions, concerns, issues, our team is here, ready, willing to assist you in any way possible. And so it is our heart's desire that this is beneficial for everyone. So. And
we are working always for sustainability. Part of the whole Atlas idea was to make the General Assembly's work sustainable. Because the Church of God Ministries, which is the office of the Assembly, does not have a tithing base. In a local church, you have a tithing base almost always. The pastor shepherd is teaching about the biblical requirements and maxims about tithing and so on. But when you move past the local church, not everyone embraces that. And that means that we have to deliver things that are often mandated by the Assembly without resource streams. So with Atlas, it has been set on the road wonderfully by some very generous donations and the Lord's provision. There will be ongoing operating costs to it, just like in the new house you moved into. And the Ministries Council, in a very thoughtful dialogue at September meeting, is asking us at Church of God Ministries to back up on some of our planning about the sustaining just the operation of the system that benefits our regional associations most directly. Again, over 50% of the total cost and 55% of the build cost was to meet the needs of the dynamics side of the equation to help serve our regional associations and our institutions and so on. And that includes our agencies. And so the Ministries Council asked us to go back and get out a clean piece of paper and work collaboratively with the leaders of our regional associations to talk about how there can be some cost sharing, not to recoup any costs that has already been out the door in building Atlas, but just to make sure that the enhancements and the maintenance of the system does not fall behind. Because that's what happened in our original, not when I say our, the Church of God approach to technology was not only was not strategic investment made writ large, we were reacting to needs in the moment, but it was not maintained. Investments were not made in maintenance, and then you fall behind and it becomes more problematic and more expensive. So how can we have cost sharing arrangements to make sure that the system operates smoothly, just like maintaining your house or your car engine? And there are other ways in which people support Church of God Ministries, but for instance, if you're registering your local congregation as a credentialed member of the church and so on, sometimes people think, oh, that cost is going up because of that Atlas thing. No, it has nothing to do with Atlas. There is no relationship between the increase in the cost of registration and operating Atlas. Because if you heard what we said already, the cost of Atlas, all the investment, the capital up front, was funded separately with gifts from people and a large estate that understood the value of that. The ongoing operation of it is not targeted to our pastors. The dynamics piece of it that the regional pastors, which actually is custom development just for them to meet them, and they're game to help play a part. It's just the navigation of what share should be borne and so on and so forth. But in the end, all of this is economizing the Assembly's work. Because as I started out in the conversation, just the software for accounting alone over 10 years would be $650,000. And we're now owning, we don't pay that software fee anymore. And we're so thankful for that. So that helps Greece's kids. But there will always be a need to support the united ministry of the Church of God. Leadership focus requires a huge technological infrastructure. If you have 400 to 500 candidates online in a prescribed curricular course, you're actually operating a university online. We have faculty, we have coaches, we have tracking, we have people who pay fees, and people think, well, I pay for Leadership Focus. What people contribute in fees, whether it be the local jurisdictions that are asked to pay per candidate they recommend, and the candidate themselves pays it, what they pay has never come close to paying for the cost of delivering Leadership Focus. The fees for Leadership Focus don't pay for Atlas or the infrastructure. It helps us maintain a viable office to deliver these things, and for Leadership Focus, for the coaches and for the staffing and for the materials and for the registrations and all that's required. If you have any questions about how any of these requested investments go down, give us a call. Don't just talk among yourselves with people who may not actually know the answers. Give us a call. We're always glad to hear from you. And thank you so much for your partnership with the General Assembly of the Church of God of the United States and Canada. And as a closer, thank you this Thanksgiving time for your faithful support, because there are so many folks who give financially, sacrificially, to help make this work possible across the board. And as the year comes to a close and you're looking at your 2025, go online, jesusisthesubject.org, and press the Events tab, which will take you to the Church of God Convention and Assembly meeting in Denver in 2025. Check it out. You'll see the schedules, the calendars. Register now. The more the merrier. The earlier, the better. And you'll save money by doing it earlier, because that saves the assembly money. Elise, thank you so much for what we're doing. And you can't tell probably from Elise at the table, but she is close to delivering her second child. She and her husband are welcoming a new little one soon, just after the first year. Thank you for being here and working with us, even as you're carrying your new precious life to term. And Alicia, thank you also for jumping on board. And she was interviewing for the Chief Operating Officer. I had to talk to her about this thing. And she said she was all for it, because Alicia is in this generation that has been born and raised in technology. And she understands its value. Thanks to our production team. As always, you can't see them, but they are making this possible. Thank you for joining us. This is Jim Lyon at Church of God Ministries. God bless.